Call the meeting to order. We have Mr. Tappan here to talk to us about the financial planning tool. Mr. Tappan.
Since Steve is here, I had some introductory material which is, I think, more of interest to the select board. But since Steve is here, I think we jump right into details of the FPT.
Great.
The last time the select board worked on it was December 15th. And at that time, we were working on revision 0.08. 0.08, and that was when we had a computer hardware malfunction and ended up resorting to the blackboard. So afterwards, from the information that was on the blackboard, I put that into the FPT. And then there was a revision 0.09 and 0.10, and those are updates that I made from the decisions that the select board made at the budget hearings, where there were changes made to the appropriations to trust or reserve funds, and I just put those in as the new overrides. So tonight we would be working on, starting on 11, with any change, if we make any changes.
Great.
Nothing has changed here. Steve did send me some information this afternoon. I got some of it entered, but not all of it.
Thanks.
And some of it had questions about the containers.
So, yeah.
So,
Can you, Andy, do you have the monies that we were allocated, the monies that we've
Spent.
encumbered, if you will? How much is left over?
I have the monies that we've spent. I do not have the final allocation, although I believe it's in this latest version of your plan, isn't it, John? What we earmarked on the evening that we,
yes.
yeah.
And with the amounts that we had at that time.
Yeah,
The
today,
costs that we had at that time.
yeah, today we actually haven't expended very much, a little over $8,000, $8,037.25 is what we've actually spent. We've earmarked a little over 30, I believe, vicinity of 32.
For everything? We had 200 and some odd thousand, and I thought we spent like 140 or something.
Not yet, I'm in the process.
I'm
It's
sorry.
working
I'm in
on
the
it.
process of working on it.
No, but
It's encumbered.
From the original earmarks, and I believe that is in the financial planning tool now, what we have
So
assigned to each project.
I think that perhaps from the last time you have not seen this, I added to the town buildings worksheet that in this column where originally we could just put in an X if it was not going to be funded, or we could put in a B for a bond. You can also put in an A1 for ARPA first year, or an A2 for ARPA second year, or a B for annual budget. And this area up here tallies what has been entered. So right now, there's $800,000 entered as to come from the reserve fund, 5 items at a total of $128,000 to come from the first year ARPA, 5 items with a total of $110,000 from the second year ARPA. Nothing entered is coming from the budget, nothing from the bond, and there were 15 items for a total of $4.3 million entered as not funded. And this is because when it was being done on the blackboard, of course, weren't getting any feedback.
Right.
And I was not doing as good a job as would be desired at trying to keep up on my laptop with the decisions you were making.
The ARPA total that we had was $239,163.50 to start with.
Is that the second amount? Is the same as the first? Does it have an amount?
That was the first amount, but
Is the second?
is the same,
Okay.
yes.
Great. So we can spend
So-
some cash.
well, we don't have 111,000 left to allocate though, do we? It was 239, we've allocated only 128.
Right, which means we can allocate more now and then still get ready for the next wave.
I think we have some, probably some changes that perhaps have been made since.
Okay.
Because in talking to Steve, back when this was first entered, the museum deck and ramp replacement was entered at 5,000.
Be twice that, right?
And I know Steve had been talking about twice that.
I thought we were at 10, so I was already wrong.
Well, 10 with the composite or 10 with the?
You're at 6 right now with just the composite in the deck with no ramp and not fixing the ramp.
So it needs to be 10. Correct?
So 10 would do everything?
Well, it's probably gonna be more like 11 and a half or 12, judging from what
Okay.
I gather, because John and I have to go tomorrow and measure and make sure that I can achieve the
grade and the.
Well, the grade and the pitch of the ramp and the space that I have without having to make a double back.
So can we go ahead and adjust
But
that
I
as
have
well?
not ordered anything yet, so I haven't ordered anything yet.
I will have an appointment to meet with Steve tomorrow at 1.
Yeah.
And I have gone over a review of what's there and the requirements in the 2010 ADA standard, and does it pass or fail, and you can see that pretty much all of it fails.
Well, let's
So-
look on the positive side. One pass, come on.
So we're not gonna ever be able to make the doors accessible, that they're not ever gonna be wide enough. So the best we can do is try to make the rest of it as good as we can.
We'll check on that tomorrow.
All right,
The requirement is 32 inches.
which you may have.
Might have.
So can we allocate was it number 23?
Yep.
Can we allocate the additional and then capture that?
11.5,
12,
12.
12.
What
Just
number?
212.
12, to be safe. So it's much nicer to over and then have wiggle room.
Well, Steve's pretty cheap, so he can stretch it all pretty far, so.
I don't think I call them cheap,
uh,
frugal.
Yeah, thrifty, how about that? Are these, any of these other ones, Steve? You mentioned the.
So one of them has to go up because we waited from the first quote to the second, to when I was able to sign it. The price went up $600 because of materials.
Which
Which
one was
one?
this?
That would be the air conditioning system replacement for the police department.
You know the technical problem? Keyboard doesn't seem to work.
Oh dear. We always seem to have that problem. Did you turn it on?
I've got some spare batteries there.
Last time we changed the battery and stuff, and then it was just an on-issue.
Let's see.
I was just gonna eat that overage though, Scott, in my general
Oh,
budget, because it was not like it was a lot, it was $600, it wasn't.
We can adjust it here if that helps.
Has the buttons for connect, but
I don't know though either if I have to, because we were able to loop to take, when all the pipes broke down at the highway department, our labor helping them took $1,900 off the bill,
That's
so
amazing.
if we're helping them pull everything out and install it, I'm not
They
that,
might come back to
I'm not worried
Great.
about it. They'll credit us and help us.
You want to try new batteries?
sure. I mean, it has a button, Scott, you know, it has a button here for connect. You push that.
usually, yeah,
and
usually has
you
an on-off
expect,
button too, but
um,
I don't know about that
I've
one.
had trouble with that one a bunch of times.
I don't see any on and off button. I just see a button that's labeled connect.
Hmm. Oh.
And it's recessed and you can push it till it clicks, but it doesn't seem to make any difference.
Do you want to pass it to me?
We'll try the batteries.
Seems like we
Oh,
need
these are triples.
triples, you have triples?
I did
We
not.
we did change it last time,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was put in, and I don't think it's been used that much.
December, right?
I wonder if it goes to sleep
I'm
right
letting you a little quicker.
Yeah, last time when we did it.
Yeah,
here. Try
I
this
might
one.
have triples in my little, in the other
She was
remote.
better. I just feel like we should have like just batteries in a basket somewhere. In a locked basket somewhere.
Yeah, but then who has the key?
Homer always needs batteries.
Yeah, I've got triples in here.
We're all taking them on assumption.
So just push the connect. And two, and
Does the mouse work?
three. Yeah.
But not the keyboard.
And, the keyboard.
Maybe we shouldn't let John touch the technology anymore.
Oh.
That's what.
Well, I can keep
Well, I
track of
gotta
the,
do it something.
I still have faith in Rebecca.
Get 12,000
Maybe
minutes
another
up.
one in there or something. Like somebody
No, I-
grabbed something out of there sometime.
the only thing we had was the little wireless chip
Oh,
in the back, but it's not in there anymore.
It's in the front, I think.
There's two in the front, and both of them say gyration, and that's the brand of these.
Should be using.
And the mouse is working.
This is what I do all day.
Turn off and turn back
This
on.
is not what I do all day. I actually
This is what I
accomplish
do
things
all day.
by not using computers.
Ah!
Much more useful.
Okay, that was the mouse, I think, because it just went away.
Good.
Mouse is back.
Yay, now do that magic with
Because
this
this one's not
keyboard.
lighting up. Yeah, that one's not lighting up.
Does that one need a battery?
No, it doesn't.
No, it's the
It's not on.
port that's being
There's a light that goes on right there, and it's not coming on.
There is another USB port in the back.
That's what I'm trying. Okay. Oh, there we go. Try that.
Let me hit the connect button.
I have a flashing little green light.
I
Do we
have a
get to
flashing
edit this
blue
out?
light.
Do we need to add this out of our meeting?
Steve came in at that time.
It's embarrassing. Type time.
Typically,
Blinking.
you're not
Feels
supposed
like
to,
that should be a.
you're not supposed to edit the embarrassing parts, but I
Got it.
think for IT issues.
I'll personally apologize to anyone watching then. I apologize for the boring part.
It's from 5 communication on the Historical Society Museum deck.
Nothing. All right, let's try
I'm
this.
Googling it.
That has worked when John was closer before, because I remember we put him
Do you want to come up here, Tom?
on the end of the,
Or put
Well,
your
now we have
keyboard here?
something, USB device not
There you go.
recognized.
It's not recognized,
Try that.
but it's not recognized.
it went away though.
It's because I unplugged and plugged it into a different port.
Does it recognize closer?
She gets a blue flashing light, but
Go light. And there's no like special button we're missing, right?
Right, hold on. Hold on.
I think Denise has made this happen before. Is there anything really?
How do I recent my wireless keyboard?
I think, the last time we just brought it.
What about the sleep? Did you wake it up?
Yeah.
It's literally
We
just
did that.
flickering. It's just flashing. That's not a good sign.
Actually, it's a good sign. That it's doing something. Look.
Okay, is there a button on the okay, so this British guy is saying,
This British guy.
is saying that to resync them, we need to hit the button on the transmitter. Not the transmitter, I believe, is that thing on
Yeah,
top.
he's-
No, this is a little button.
No, this doesn't look the same.
Well, that's because ours is better.
Oh, yes, clearly. Did you hit the button?
Well, I gotta get back in. Okay, do I press and hold it? Do I just press it?
Just press it.
All
All
right.
right, press the button on the,
Okay, it says it's setting up the device.
what would you call him? Call a British guy.
You call the British guy?
Yeah, I'm sure he wants to hear
Maybe
from us right
it's
now. Does he sell them? Why is he
No
telling
idea.
us about them?
He's just on YouTube.
Oh, good for him.
Because everybody's on YouTube.
I am not on YouTube. Oh, wait, I am. I'm speaking right now.
Right now we're on YouTube. Oh my god.
Oh,
Nope.
no.
We don't don't just have
The
a keyboard
chalkboards
that
are
like
better.
plugs in, right?
Oh,
Is that a
I
silly
could
question?
maybe that number changes.
I do feel like Denise for the win at some point, but I don't remember what it was. I'm looking for parts. You guys can keep doing what you're doing, I'm just looking for parts.
Oh, I was gonna do
Keyboard in
something,
here.
it
Can we use that
started
keyboard?
what was the progress, I
The
didn't.
keyboard in there, can we unplug it and plug it in?
Yes,
Is
please.
it the same kind?
So-
Is it
USB?
wireless or is
I
it
just have,
wired?
we
I don't even know what it's for, I'm just looking for parts.
like started doing a bunch of stuff.
We're gonna swap shop next. Find some useful parts that work. Why has this not been around? I've really missed
It's
out.
been there the entire
Wow.
time.
Not having our gavel.
Wow.
Whose is this? Oh, it's a town piece though. Good to know. Never saw the other side of this thing. Sorry.
I think I'm gonna be sitting closer.
Do you
So
wanna,
somebody
do
will
you,
be.
do you want, John, do you want one of us to be in charge of typing things in? Would that make your life easier?
That's okay?
You did it, it worked.
Do you wanna be in charge of typing, or do you wanna
Oh.
switch seats?
No, but does John want to just come sit here and type on that?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, we can do that.
Maybe.
As long as my-
And I'll just get out of the way. I'll go that way towards the end.
Okay.
And we'll just hope,
Do you
can we
wanna-
move this little box though?
Trying to make John's life easier.
I'm looking at the cords here and some.
Yeah, please don't hurt
Let's
yourself.
not anyone get injured today. It's exciting, who knew?
Well, I feel like that's probably something that should always be your option, use of this.
Yeah. But that's the one from the other room, thanks for grabbing that. We're problem solvers here, Lee. Does John have a microphone? Can we get him
I
one?
know, I could share it.
No, let's just grab that one for him, and then we can hear him as well. Oh, thank you.
Just don't move, John, at all.
Everybody
You're
is
completely
very-
surrounded by
Yeah. John's
tables and.
All right. Mine, you ready?
Okay, so that brought our one up a little bit. The other numbers that are in there are just what we had from that evening. And Steve said his purpose here was to bring you up to date on what he was working on.
Great.
He said he didn't have very many numbers to change. He did give me information about some transfer station equipment, which I had not gotten in. As I understand it, it's just a slight decrease in prices.
It's actually decreasing prices.
Wow.
Yeah, but we're getting smaller dumpsters, so
And
we're not getting as big a dumpsters.
the other information was in highway equipment about GIS.
Yeah,
And I did get some numbers in for that, but I don't have the links. So I think maybe let Steve go ahead with
Okay.
what his updates are, and we can look at the numbers here if it's.
Yeah.
so as far as things that was ARPA money that we were gonna, that got approved that night, the highway annex furnace is installed and done.
Yay.
That was done February. They just haven't, I finally got a bill for it. I haven't turned it in yet.
Was that around 12?
14.
14, okay, so that'll.
Yeah, that's the truth.
So this one right here.
Was that on here?
Yeah,
It's the same price as the,
Oh.
it's the same, it was the same price as the furnace for the town hall.
14,880,
Yeah,
okay, and it is this one, furnace for highway annex.
yeah, they replaced everything. I got hot water for the first time since I started working there. 'Cause they
Oh, my
moved-
goodness.
We had a new hot water heater at the same time.
That's great. And that was for the 14,880?
Yeah,
Great.
And these are both boilers, right?
yeah, it's a boiler and we got all new pumps and zones and everything's completely
Okay.
done and new.
Yay.
And so that was done this fiscal year.
Yep. Ding dong.
Yes.
Nature's
There's no
cool.
caps lock here.
I'm just gonna do all the building ones first, John, since you're on that page.
Okay. And was that supposed to come out of ARPA?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's.
Highway,
John, look at this.
Because at the time, we were
Space.
really, really bad off.
Yeah, that's
And
right there.
I had come before the board about how bad it was, and I told them it wouldn't be any more than the town hall furnace, so it was not, a not to exceed number,
so
is what I thought. it
John, it
was.
says estimated cost 14,880, but then 2022 cost is 15, so
You're right.
how can you,
No, so it's this year's cost also.
oh, okay, so then it should be, okay, I see.
So that it's not using this annual increase to boost it.
And how does it know that when it's paid?
Well,
Well,
it's not an accounting tool, it's a planning tool, so.
yeah.
Okay, so we can't, so we would just take it
well,
off?
This is coming from ARPA, so it's not being charged as something to come from the reserve fund.
Okay. So we'll get to see it in the ARPA funds if it's.
So you see it up here,
Perfect.
and that total would be whatever you've already actually spent out of it, plus what you plan to.
Perfect, thank you.
The accounting part should come from the gentleman sitting behind you.
Good job.
Okay, so,
So I don't know if it's on there or not, but we did the library heat exchanger, that was just out of our budget. I don't even know if it's on there, it's just furnace work that we did that wasn't,
That's the one where the warranty paid for it, but then the labor we had to pay.
yes, but I don't know if that's on there.
is that wasn't the library AC?
No, so it's not on there then, it's just one thing that we've done that was,
Okay.
and then in progress, ARPA things, the bunk rooms, which should be done this week.
Is that gonna be within budget or?
Yes,
budget?
it's gonna be within,
Well,
well within.
Okay.
And
Do you
including
wanna
the
change
10,000,
that?
right?
Because it was estimated at 30,000.
I think you're probably gonna be 28, 27,
But we-
somewhere around there.
But we added in the extra to the bunk rooms with
is
last
that
time,
with
so
the
that should be up.
communication?
That's with the communication
Oh,
sheet.
okay.
It should be like 27.
Okay.
It was gonna be about half before we.
Yeah, I was gonna do it for like 15 before you
And
did
that's with the
that.
bar and all the things you have still have to get, and the curtains and the.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're fine.
All right.
Can you define what you mean by bar, so that the audience knows what you're
Oh,
talking about?
we were talking about, you're right, that does sound bad. A bar that goes in front of a door so that you can't come into the door,
Okay,
not go, but you can go out in an
But
emergency.
the crash bars, we already have them bought.
Yes, but not a bar of a beverage sort,
just so,
correct? I
yes.
appreciate that, thank you for helping me with that.
The historical
Do you-
deck,
Do you want that at 27,000?
Have you paid for paint and stuff too, maybe 20?
it's already all
All
there.
right,
The only thing we have left to buy is shades for the windows.
Are we getting the good, like the blackout ones, they can see
Yeah.
during the day?
Yeah.
Okay.
and then what about mattresses and stuff, is that gonna come out of the fire department?
Oh,
well, don't they already have them?
Have you touched them?
Yeah,
I
we're
haven't touched-
no on
You should touch
that.
people's bedding, come on.
And then
We-
also
We
padding
touched
maybe?
one that didn't have bedding on it,
Oh,
Mm,
but it was not something I'd want to sleep on.
no. All right, so we'll work on that later, great.
the historical deck, we went over and increased that one. And then the Plymouth vent system, it was started today for the
the air stuff?
air stuff for the fire department, got started today.
Great.
So that was this one, and this price that's entered there, I believe, was the 67,120, plus at that time, it was an estimate of 4,000 for the electrical work.
The electrical work came in at
Electrical work
25,
came in at 2,100.
2,100 bucks.
So what's it really, total?
So that should be 67, 69, 220.
You just missed a 7. Oh, I see, 69. All right,
And then
67, 120.
as far as the rest of that, signed, but waiting for the contractors, the police department air and the town hall furnace. There was no reason to do the town hall while it was still running in the middle of winter. The only reason we did the highway departments is we really didn't have a furnace sitting there.
Mhm.
Then other building things. Fire fire suppression system that's on there, Capital Alarm was called, they gave us a solid actual quote. They haven't come yet to do that.
Okay.
That one is, right now is listed as no funding planned or,
Right.
We didn't, yeah, but we're trying to actually get a decent number.
this
So-
number is from 2010.
Yeah, so we were trying to get one that was new.
Yeah.
That will have to be its own thing at a separate time because we don't have any.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just,
No, you
that's
know.
on the
Yeah.
list, so I was just trying to give an update on where
Yeah,
we were on
that's
it.
perfect.
The historical building does not have lead paint on it.
Really?
Great news.
I tested that the other day when I was there with Jan, it does not have lead paint on it, so that was a plus.
Alright. Oh, does the ramp and the deck thing also include fixing that, like, that fascia board that's?
That was, I was gonna fix that whether we did the deck and the ramp or not, because it's starting to rot.
Right.
That's it for the buildings, as far as I've gotten for the buildings,
Okay.
with trying to get things done. If you're the highway department, road and bridge one, John,
Okay.
Chesley Brook is hopefully gonna happen
Okay.
in August. That's the one that's got the $245,000 grant that we got,
So how much do we spend?
Yeah, what's our cost?
close to what you see right there.
Great.
Probably actually gonna be less, but I don't, things in dirt work and with diesel prices going through the roof, I'm not
That's fine.
entirely sure. Tuttle Road pipe by Stevens property, we're plugging along and getting the wetlands permit for that. That's gonna be a slip line and part of the, I'm gonna blank on the word, but part of the remediation for doing the slip line on Tuttle Road is being done at Chesley Brook, like for impacts. If you scroll down, John,
Is that,
So there's
60 should be close.
And the
Okay,
date will be
and
when?
So that would be.
That, I don't have a date, I don't know a date
Maybe
yet on that.
2023.
No, I mean, the 60,000 would be this year's estimate,
Yeah,
not last year's.
is that the one, is the Tuttle Road pipe thing, is that the one with the fish or turtle, or that's not that one?
that's Chesley Brook. The Tuttle Road pipe one's the one that kept getting shot down with the slope stabilization. They kept trying to put a bridge on and we kept going for a FEMA grant and it kept getting denied for like 6 years in a row.
Okay.
Chesley is unique because it's one of the few eastern streams that has native eastern brook trout and lamprey eels in it at the same time in the same places.
And it's like there's only one other brook known in the entire state where the brook lamprey spawn.
Okay.
And of course, they spawn right at the pipe. There's also a plant there's also a plant they discovered right near the pipe called the Arctic burr reed.
Yep.
Buried.
And it's extremely endangered and they don't know of too many places in the state where it is except for right there.
So how are we gonna do that without disrupting the?
Carefully,
No,
that's why it costs so much money.
got it.
Okay.
Thanks for helping us pay for it.
And then, go down, John.
Okay.
So Decato Drive is done.
Great.
That got done.
Can we
And
take it off?
we unfortunately, so ARPA was, I thought, supposed to pay for that.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay,
maybe pay for that is what I thought it was. And then if it did, there was a possibility of doing the James Farm one on the second round,
Okay.
is what I thought was stated.
I do think that those things are included in ARPA because it has to do with water.
I think the definition pretty handily
Yeah.
covers
Okay.
those, because you can do stormwater, drainage water.
Yep.
Decato was about what we thought it was, other than the fact that we discovered a neighbor's driveway wasn't on his property.
Oh, oops.
So,
Add a little excitement.
Is that on this list someplace? I don't see it.
no, it was
It
added
isn't.
on, it was added on way after.
Okay.
So we have that. And that's gonna be A2, is the James Farm drainage boundary?
Yeah, so last time we talked, ARPA was only being used for buildings. And so unfortunately.
So should we make a
I only
decision?
put in- I only put in the ability to do it for
Oh,
buildings.
can we cut and
Notice
paste that
there's
and
no
bring it over to
up there.
buildings? Just for a record sheet?
I will make a note that it's supposed to be, that you want ARPA, Decatur Drive.
Or could we have a line,
Potentially James Farm too.
right, could we have a line on the, just so it does the addition for us up at the top?
Yeah, what I can do is, this, all of this here that does all this addition, I
Yeah.
can put that feature in for
Okay,
roads and bridges
so
also.
for next time, we'll have it.
But I wouldn't try to do that live here in a meeting.
That's fine, okay, so we'll add that later, but yes, I do think, because that is one of the things was rain, water runoff and that kind of thing. Do we have to, we are all agreeing that this is something we should do with ARPA, right? Okay,
Well, did it already get put on the list already?
It has not been put on the list already.
that's why I'm saying,
Probably should
decide.
vote for that. You wanna do just that one?
You mentioned
Is
this other one also.
Yeah, Genis and Decatur.
We have to do it and we don't have other ways to pay for it, so it kind of makes sense.
That's 27,000 something.
Well,
So we only allocated the 128? That true?
If, Joe, if you go back to the buildings, yeah, what do we expect, 143.30?
yeah, so we have the room.
44.
What is on here, on ARPA, oh, it's not. So the PSC compressor is getting done under the bunk room.
Oh, good, so I can come up.
Well, we didn't actually.
You didn't
actually
approve it,
that.
I could do it under the bunk room.
Is
Because,
that part of that
that-
expense?
yeah, it's gonna be part of it's part of the 15
Oh, okay.
that I was gonna have. It's not that one, John, there's one down at the bottom that says PSC compressor.
PSC,
Further down?
Yeah, you, in February, or January, you
Right.
decided to hold off on that, but
But I was able to get it, because if we don't fix
Oh,
it,
it
they're
is
not gonna have air
35.
conditioning
Right.
in that room.
That's not
That
gonna.
one?
There we go.
That one, that is getting done with, included in the bunk room project.
So that can go zero.
So that's, yeah,
That you can get rid of out of the A2 part.
okay.
Or make whatever,
So,
zero or whatever.
can zero that cost out and say, is part of the buffer.
For math purposes, could we have one line just temporarily right now that says James and Decatur Bridge with the amount? Is that an option? And then you can take that away when you fix it?
It's $27,375.
Right, so could we just have one line so that it comes up and when we're looking at the,
she meant under town buildings, John, I
Oh.
think.
yeah,
So
so that
she
way,
put it
it's in the
in the
ARPA
ARPA
funds
funds.
as we're doing math. You know what I mean? And then you could just take it away later, but at least it's there for us to see the numbers.
That's not right. Yes.
Thank you. That way we don't forget about it.
And Scott, you had that price?
27,
27,375, which leaves you about 67,000 left.
or 81.
It's gonna be in-
And we got a request from the fire chief for insulation, correct? Or, was it insulation he asked for us to allow to go get out for bid? No?
the only installation that I'm aware of is the energy committee coming to you.
Okay, so we don't, I felt like he came to us, okay.
Well, there is a public safety company that insulate air seal fire department
Yes.
ceiling, is that what you're talking about?
There is two of
It's
them,
number 17.
and 17 and 18. Fire department 17.
Yeah, for some reason I had that in my head that that's what the rest of the money was for, but
So
I
I
don't know
think
why.
the fire department ceiling one's above their bays, and I was up there the other day, and it's still blown in 3 feet deep across the whole ceiling, it's not. Because we had to run a wire from across the whole ceiling for the primal vent system the other day.
So is that good or bad that it's 350?
I mean, it hasn't moved around. They've gone up there before and raked it back around because the wind's gotten in there and blown big dead spots in it, and it wasn't like that this time.
Apologize, something in my throat.
So this is the quote for it.
Or something at the same thing.
Is it? Okay, yeah, it's just really weird. I'll just, until I stop coughing.
So this was from the Energy Committee, and this was if you did the work and if you got the rebate for it.
That's wonderful.
And the Energy Committee is coming back with Mr. Newell.
Okay. So could we make a
Discuss.
placeholder for that?
It's there.
That's
Okay.
what Seventeen is.
I mean, in the ARPA funding.
It's
It's
currently.
right now, it's listed as
Got
ARPA 2.
Perfect, okay, thank you, I apologize, I didn't get it.
And the numbers that I put in here are the worst case.
Great.
So if we don't get the rebate.
If you pay the $1,500 to do the analysis that's needed for the rebate, and then you don't get the rebate,
Okay.
that's the worst case
Okay,
scenario.
good plan.
I think, in talking with Lou Grondin and the Energy Committee, I think they feel they've got a lower estimate for those two items
Great.
coming from Mr. Newell,
Okay.
Exciting.
considerably lower.
So are all the things that are listed here under ARPA from the Blackboard thing, are those all listed under ARPA already in the spreadsheet? Have they all been updated?
Yes, they were at that
Okay.
time. So these two you're talking about are still listed for ARPA 2.
There was one thing that was supposed to be fixed in ARPA funds at the highway department building, and it's that equipment shed. And I was saving that for last, just to make sure that we had enough funds to do everything else.
But we do.
Because
How much is that?
It's number 2 in your ARPA, was that 5
it
or?
was like $5,000, but,
Yeah.
you know, there's other things that are, in my
This
opinion,
is one right here.
More
more
important.
important to try to get.
Do you want to tell us what those are?
No, we're doing them now,
Oh,
I just
okay.
wanna make sure that we have enough. Because if like one thing needs to get,
That's the thing.
yeah,
That's the first thing to ask.
to me it is.
Okay.
So that's listed now as $5,000 from ARPA 1.
Yeah, I just, so like,
So
if
do it.
the deck was gonna go over, which you've adjusted it, so now it's not as big of a deal, but if the deck was gonna go over $1,500, I was just gonna come to you and say, it went over, we'll take the 1,500 from the shed and use it as what that was my plan.
We still have 67,000 about.
Yeah,
One.
is there anything that came out of ARPA that's not on this spreadsheet?
Bridges, we did some bridges.
We've approved Conservation Commission bridges, but I have not seen bills for those yet.
But that was a few.
I paid
600.
for wood out of my operating budget at the highway department for bridges last year, after you guys had approved them.
And the biggest cost was wood. It's not wood, gravel. And you said you had some.
I got a pile of it, and we didn't really have a mud season this year, so we're on the plus side for that.
So I don't think it's gonna be even close to the 6,000. so.
Great, okay.
The other thing in this, just so you guys know, and Mr. Bugby already knows, because he was at my shop right around Christmas, so he saw it. The generator, we've spent $3,500 on at this building already, because it caught on fire.
Oh, that's not good.
And we had to replace a wiring harness, and then the computer was screwed up. It finally is fixed and auto starts again as of yesterday.
So,
It was toasted.
I'm just telling, it's not important to the replacement part. I just wanted to let you know that it had problems.
It's
that
gonna
like
last more.
21, or is that a different generator?
That's the one right there.
That's
that
the
caught on fire.
generator.
So the one that's broke down is gonna last us another 7 years? Do you really think that's
Yeah.
true?
It's just a.
Now that you fixed it,
It's
okay.
fixed now.
Okay.
I just wanted to let you know that.
And
if we
what
fixed
started it? It was shorted, and then
the coolant sensor in the top of the radiator somehow shorted out and it cooked the wiring all the way back throughout the whole entire wire harness, and the wire harness alone was $1,500.
So how do we pay for that?
It's paid for.
But, okay, so we don't
It's
need to,
budget.
we don't need to allocate money from.
No,
ARPA
I just,
to
it's
pay
something
that
major
budget.
that's happened
Okay,
on this list that I just wanted to let you guys know about.
So we have the ways to pay for the things that we've chosen already, and now the key is really to figure out what our path forward is gonna be, is that correct?
Yeah, because right now we have the vast majority of the costs here are listed as not funded.
Does Steve have anything more to tell us?
Yeah, and the highway equipment part. I got the GIS thing at the bottom. That GIS and the location of the pipes and all that, it's all, and the inventory management system can all be lumped under one thing, because the GIS can be used as inventory management.
And how much is all that?
So this item and this item are really one item.
Yeah, because you can use it for inventory management and all that.
Does that change the price of the GIS? Or does inventory management just go away as a
It
part
goes
of?
with it, it's all part of it.
And it's not more expensive?
No.
So you can make that 4,000.
$7,500 a year, plus when they put the map of the town and all the roads and all the pipes and all that is what the 25 is.
Great.
But every building gets put in it, we can use it for every single grave in the cemetery and know exactly where they are and how deep they are, so,
So 21 can go to $0.
yeah.
Perfect. I love when that happens.
There's that, and then the only other thing was, like every year, we got two dump trucks that are 30-something years old, and we were, the auctions at the end of April, and we go look like we always do.
Do we have that, that's in there already?
Yeah, those prices can come way down.
And do you have the money in the budget for those already?
Well, that's trust fund.
Okay.
That would come out of the highway equipment capital reserve fund, but
Okay.
those, the 60,000 is high.
we're looking at line 4, okay.
Yeah, the 60,000 is way high, but this is all we had planned and what we had going on, that's all I wanted to keep you apprised on, since pretty much this whole planning tool is my stuff.
Do you want to change it?
Well, yeah, so that's the question. If that has money that's already set aside for it, how do we see that here? How do we know these things have already been saved for?
It's up there.
It's up over here.
It's off the screen.
Oh, okay.
So, let's do this.
Because what we want ultimately is to know what is not paid for.
Yeah. So it's allocated.
So what
Okay.
this does is it automatically calculates how much you need to set aside for those expenses.
Right.
So with things that have been added, it calculates that with what's been added, you should have set aside 63,000 this year.
And what about the things that we already have set aside and that are on this list? That we already have, like, so let's say you bought a $40,000 plow truck.
So if this plow truck, if it's already purchased and there's no replacement planned,
Mhm.
then that line item would just come off.
Okay, or it would go to the next one down the road.
But with things like plow trucks and the fire apparatus and so forth,
Right.
if it's something that gets, well, actually, unless you plan to keep that truck the end of its life and you're never ever gonna replace it,
Right.
you should put in a replacement.
So
And
what
that
I'm,
replacement time may be even beyond the 20 years.
I guess what I'm asking is, what is it that, how do we know what we already have money for, which is the beginning of your balance? Is that what that is? What, things that are gonna come out of that
I'm
amount?
gonna see column, what is it, N, M?
So.
Can we see M?
So,
Is there an M? What's M?
I see what we have to
There
raise
you go.
money for, what do we already have?
Yeah.
so that's this fiscal year.
Okay.
And, let's see, what do we already have? This is calculating that if next year you put in that 66,000, here's your balances if you keep doing that going on up.
Okay.
So you just have to make sure the stuff that's coming out in this fiscal year and next, you've got enough money in there to cover those particular expenses, and you do.
Correct. This,
Yeah.
with what's been entered,
We're good.
If all that follows and is done in this fiscal year,
Yep.
then you'd end the year at $260,000
Okay, so
in that fund.
this list, we don't have to worry about right now for, that's funded, it has a plan, and that's all going forward. So we don't have to spend time on that right now.
The concern gets when you get into, what is that, Q? You're down to like $10,000 left in there, so you don't want that to go negative.
So you
that's
would
the thing.
plan to put the deposit in,
Yeah.
okay, but that we can do later.
That won't go negative because you've already said that
Oh, okay.
at the end of each year, you want to have at least 5% of the
Right.
expenditures for that year left over as a margin, but not less than 10,000,
Great.
no more than 50,000.
So this one, we don't have to spend as much time right now. What we really need to do is spend our energy and time on figuring out the ones that don't have any funding and no plans for funding, like town buildings. The bridges look like they're covered for now, for the next year or two, which of course we want to plan down the road, but I'm just saying right now what we have to work on.
There are other ones here where this year's balance or next year's goes negative
Okay,
that you may want to look at.
but in the interest of time and figuring out the big ones, is that
Well,
something
the
that we
big
need to
one
figure out?
is definitely town buildings.
Right, so I feel like that's where we should be putting our energy, especially with Steve here.
These others are library and recreation.
Right.
Things that go negative.
Okay, yeah, let's focus on buildings then.
Target town buildings.
I just want to let you guys know what we've been working on.
No, thank
I feel
you.
like we've got, started getting a fair amount done.
Great.
Steve, can I ask you an
Yeah.
operational question? Because you guys have been doing a lot of non-highway department stuff with highway department people, so when is highway department gonna start pulling those people back to do highway stuff?
Hopefully soon.
Because it's getting nicer, and that's when you guys start doing all your stuff.
Yeah, so like the bunk rooms was a great winter,
Yeah.
not spring project. So
Okay.
probably after we do the deck, and then, but like two of us can do the deck, and then two of us can be out on the road. That one's not as big of a thing, plus it's gonna be it's outside, so.
Okay. Thanks.
So may I ask a question, it's probably silly, but can ARPA be used for anything on this list?
No, there are some clear-cut
Yeah.
definitions for what you can use it for.
I thought we could use it because we had revenue shortfalls, we could use it for
You,
anything.
you can use it for a broad spectrum, but there
large
still
one.
are some defining.
You can't use it for the bar like Katrina was talking about. I'm pretty sure that's.
Claim it was liquid management, you might be able to.
Liquid management.
Ooh, like it,
Liquid
fancy. So I guess my question, I mean, it looks like we have $70,000 and we have lots of unfunded
This
projects.
year, correct. So that's what I'm saying, like, if we could focus on what else we can knock out with the funding that we have for at least this year, and then start figuring out what our next plan is,
For your second payment.
right?
Well, the other big thing with the three of us have to have a conversation about is those white elephants in the room.
I feel like I'm ready to have that conversation,
You
like,
ready to
I
have the
think
white
it's
elephant
time,
conversation?
yeah.
Because if you can figure out how to deal with that particular issue,
You
the
take
rest of
away
this stuff is
somebody's-
gonna
Tell me what
fall
the white
away,
elephant-
so.
The white elephant is all the buildings that we have in our care that don't necessarily have, we don't have the ability, if you look at the numbers, we can't really afford so many things on our list if they're not actually being used for things. So let's say an example is to renovate the town hall would be maybe, what is it, 600,000 or something?
Yeah.
And the question is, what is that for? Where does that money come from? Who pays for that?
Hmm.
Right now, it's all Xed out.
Right. And then we have a tool shed that is gonna have lead paint, needs to be repainted. Does that add value to the taxpayers of Lee, to the town, that is necessary? We have it because we like its historic value, but we don't, do we do anything with it that makes that historic value worth the cost we're about to endure? Or could we use that space where the tool shed is right now as a way that would make it more affordable for when we do work on the town hall? That's the kind of questions we have to ask. We have 2 buildings for the Lee Historical Society right now. I think they're open about 40 hours a year. So 4 hours every weekend. I meant a year, sorry. So the question is, value added to the people of Lee, do two buildings with heat, electrical, maintenance, sheds, not sheds, decks, all that, is there a value to that makes it worth it to the community? Or do we need to think about what we're using those buildings for, and if those are, should there be one building, or should there be a second purpose for that building? Or what are the things that make that, because everything comes with a price.
Yeah.
So what is the price that we're willing to pay, and what is it giving to the people of Lee? So we're not wasting their money just because, well, we have a building, we'll just spend money fixing it. Well, why? For who? For what? The parish house is a great example. It's an enormous expense. We've never come up with any reason that we need it. It was voted to be torn down when we first purchased it. We voted to save it, and now we still don't know what to do with it. And the expense, I have no idea where that money would come from. I totally understand the attachment to its historic value, but maybe it's time for us to ask, would somebody like to buy it and move it to a different property and take care of it themselves? Do we want to offer it to a nonprofit? How do we pay for things we don't need? That's my question.
I'll retort by saying, I don't even want to focus on those yet. I want to focus on the town office building and what's going to replace it.
Okay.
And I think that is the bigger nut in all those particular things that you just mentioned.
Okay.
Because the lease, we got potentially 9 years in total. Then what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Do we renew it? Do we see if we buy it? But do we go someplace else? There's also been conversations, do we do something with the library? We build them a new building, get them out of the building they're in, so they have a building that's purpose-built for library activities. Those are the bigger nuts for me. Those are important things that you mentioned, but this is the bigger nut for me. How do we deal with that particular issue?
Right. So I'll just throw an idea out there that I think makes a lot of sense in my mind, and I'd love to see why it wouldn't in someone else's. So right now we're spending $60,000 on rent. We're also paying a lot of maintenance fees and a lot of other expenses. Plus we also have a bond that comes from the, that we still have with the safety complex that will come off. If you took those two amounts of money, put them together, it would be very close to the price we could pay without increasing taxes for the people to have a brand new town hall, very simple, very basic, well insulated, well organized, similar to the building we're renting now. An office building that could be on the property that we planned, that's between the church and the library. We have the space for it. We've already done all the work to make sure that it's a good idea. We've looked at the options. We could make it much smaller than the one that was originally planned, and we could go ahead and we could bond that and have that option happen in March.
So what do you do with the library?
The library has ideas about what they can do with the money that they currently have. So they're talking about renovating currently with the money that they have, the areas so they can make that more usable. It's not enough space for them, but the question is, do we talk to them about adding on to that space there? Do we look at one of the other buildings that we have for them to expand with? If we talked about some of the other buildings that are in that area and we move those around, would they have a better choice as opposed to using the setback for an expansion? But for me personally, they're ready to go on renovating the stuff they know they're going to need, like the old schoolhouse in that area. With the money that has already been saved, they can do those renovations, have a value-added situation right now.
They could do part of the renovations.
The renovations without the addition, they could afford right now. That's about
Eliminated
600.
some of the previously requested renovations because it did not fit in 600,000.
Right, so one of the things that they had, and this is one of the questions I think that's gonna come up, one of the expenses that was on there was just building the shaft for the elevator with the plan that the only way they can have an addition is if they use the basement. If that's not something that they use and we have a different space option for them to build out to, like where the hobo shed is, the tool shed is, then, or something else, or where the Historical Society building is, then that could be a separate thing we work on in the future. But this is something that they could do right now to renovate what they have, increase, their insulation, increase their the floors, so they can put more books in the first area, and upgrade the electrical, upgrade the heating and cooling, I think. So those things can happen.
But those things, the electrical is not in there.
It is actually, I spoke to the contractor, and that was part of it, was included in, yes. And the one that wasn't was the insulation, but I said if we add that back in, it's not a huge expense, but it would be one that I felt we had discussed.
Insulating what, the old schoolhouse?
Yeah.
Because that should be done when we deal with the clapboard issue.
I have a question, I think something we should discuss, and this is one of those things on the goals that we should talk about, and that is going forward. Do we want to work on a building knowing that we are facing extreme heat and extreme cold without being aware of insulating it and making sure that the heat and the cooling that we put into it is energy efficient? And I don't know where you guys stand on that. I feel very strongly that I wouldn't want to put money into renovating a building that wasn't energy efficient.
Well, unless you do something with the windows in that old part of the library, the schoolhouse.
The schoolhouse actually has fairly new windows that are double panes.
Oh, they're doubles now.
Yeah.
But they're singles.
No, it's other parts of the library that are singles, or there's one,
So I did go and look at all the windows,
yeah.
Yep.
and in the schoolhouse, most of the windows are double pane with storms. But there are two
Which is great.
windows that look like they're just single pane with no storms.
Which ones are those?
The ones on either side that are in the toilet room
Mhm.
and the stairway at the front of the original building, those are smaller windows. And I didn't go inside to look at them, but from the outside, there are no storms on those, and they look like they're single.
Okay.
The other windows are double with storms, and throughout the rest of the library, the windows range from single pane with storms. There's some that are double pane with no storms, and then there's the double pane with storms.
So they have lots of
So
iterations.
there's most combinations you could have.
But the area that they're thinking of renovating, it would really just be the insulation and then the renovation.
Um, Yeah, I have not seen the list of how many items were taken out in order to get that down to the 600,000.
And I think that one of the things that they have talked about is the ability to fundraise, and then, again, we could have things we could add back in if we felt were important.
The
With funding.
The full project that they were originally planning is about 1.8 million.
Originally,
Yes.
And then-
That's addition and renovation.
right.
And that design still doesn't have features that it should have.
Right. So I think what they're saying in the last meeting that I heard was that and this is something we can talk about later, but maybe we can leave that an unknown until we met with them. But it felt more like they were willing to do this more in pieces, focus on really getting the library into a usable, functioning thing. And then, I think they want to bring up the different options to just renovating what we have, doing an addition. But I do think that a large part of the extra would need to be fundraising, and I think they know that and they realize that. And then there could be other ways to work with that. So I think our focus, maybe we should focus on a library conversation with the library trustees, but our focus definitely, I think, on the town office building. For me, like I said, I feel like you take that chunk and you turn that into a bond with the money that you're already spending. And then that takes a huge chunk out of this challenge.
All right, so if we ignored the library.
Yep.
And we ignored the town office building on this list.
Right.
What else is on the list that we could pay for with ARPA that is
Bingo.
highest priority? Since we have Mr. Bullock here.
Some of those things have to be decided that's why I was bringing it up.
Yeah,
Some
no,
of
I
those things have to bring
understand,
up
I just.
what we're gonna save and what we're not.
Can you scroll the list, John?
From the top?
Yeah, please.
Like, we know that this building is gonna stay. We're not doing anything to this building, so getting this building up to its full potential makes a lot of sense.
So,
There's a whole section there of that.
so, like, it's nice they wanna re-insulate above, ceilings and stuff, but there's plenty of other energy things you could do to this building instead of that.
Okay.
Like, it's windy out. If you go sit along that back row right there, it feels like there's no windows there at all, and it's blowing right through
Oh,
and
wow.
freezing cold.
What's
So all
missing?
the windows are, I don't know, the windows are drafty, and then all the outside doors, so like in the room right below us, you can stand there and look right through the
Yeah.
gaps, because all the weather stripping's gone. So there's,
Those are maintenance type things, those aren't capital.
But they would need
They
funding.
did that
They-
lower door test,
Yeah,
and
I'm just-
there's a lot of leaks.
Yeah, put money for that.
there's a lot of, I'm just saying, just walking around the building, there's a lot of things you could do to make the building more energy efficient. And as far as the maintenance part of it, you're correct, we just have never had the money.
So maybe we could.
We will now, but I don't know if spending all that money to put insulation in the ceiling when there's already plenty of insulation that's still fluffy with airspace, if it's worth spending that money when you could do this stuff first and see if it helps drastically.
How much money
Part
would
of
you,
it was-
how much money would we really need to allocate to, I understand it's maintenance, but if we could just get the
Kind of
building
ARPA,
up
yeah.
to the place where it would be in a good place, do we have any idea how much it would cost us?
I don't know, because I don't know what's wrong with the windows
Yeah.
around them to,
I'm asking an impossible question.
I know, and is that a situation where we go old school and we plastic the windows in the winter? You know, I mean, I know that's lame, but like, is that a thing that, instead of buying all new windows?
you need to find out why you're getting
Yeah,
airflow. Is
exactly,
it because they weren't sealed around the outside? Is it the
That's
window
it.
itself leaking?
correct. Are they
So
dumping
maybe that's something
themselves?
we could ask Steve to get Bill or somebody, or to take a look at those things.
I think just what you've seen from the addition you put in the bunk room, there are serious mismeasurements around all the interior doors. And
Yeah.
from what Steve's shown me, if there's any indication of what's going on with the windows and the door, there's probably serious gaps around all your windows and exterior doors too.
it's pretty bad.
Could
There's
we
nothing-
caulk them?
There ain't nothing, there's nothing straight up here.
Cool.
I just vote no on using that company, whatever that was again.
I was thinking
That was,
Thank you.
the interior ones, because that was Bill Murch.
Yeah,
that did that.
they're bad,
Well, you get what you pay for.
I know.
Let's
The
not do
original
that
cost for
again.
doing the upstairs was about $250,000, and we
No, I
cut it
know,
off.
no, I know.
We paid him almost $30,000 to do upstairs, so that tells you what you get.
Well, then maybe it's time for us to, so I personally, I think a great way to spend some ARPA money is to get this place energy efficient. The electric bill for this building is not reasonable, it's not acceptable.
The fuel bills are.
It's the fuel bill that's
It's
worse.
ridiculous.
Excessive.
We can't.
We have 2 deliveries a month, probably this winter, between 500 and 900 plus a delivery. During the coldest parts of January and February,
Was there
we had
once a
3
week?
deliveries.
That's not
That's
acceptable.
better.
And that's wasting, so if we put money in now, we save money every year going forward. So to me, it's irresponsible for us to do anything else. So I would want to make sure we put some of that money towards just all the things you're talking about, Steve.
Let's ask Steve if he can come back to us with what it would cost to fix all those things.
And Lou is going
Give us
to,
that,
Rondon
right.
is going to come forward. I got him all the oil bills and the propane bills
Great.
for this building. He calculated, so he's going to give you totals on that, what you're spending as well.
You also have to remember this building came online, what, 2003? So it's 19 years old.
My building came online in 2007 and it is insulated really well and very reasonable in heating, so.
Oh, I'm
You gotta make it
I'm
tight.
just saying that, I'm just saying, it's an old building, so.
Yeah, it's not, I know,
You know.
but you shouldn't feel a draft by a window, not in a 2000
And if we
building.
invested some of the ARPA money, maybe Steve says we don't need to spend $70,000 on insulation.
Right, so we can move that
We spend
somewhere
that
else.
instead on fixing all of the draftiness, that
Mhm.
might solve the problem
So like a
instead.
prime example is when we had to take the ceiling down over there to do the bunk rooms. Once we took the drop ceiling down, there were holes in the ceiling where they're in between the rafters, where they punched the diffusers through.
Oh,
Huge, with no insulation in it at
Oh,
all.
jeez.
And
Yep.
so we plugged the holes the best we could, but there are holes above our heads that go right up into the rafters.
And those are fixable things that we could handle doing.
Yeah, and that's all, the Pink Panther insulation, the bad insulation, it's not the blown-in stuff like
Yeah.
above the fire
great.
department.
You've got to do the air sealing first.
Right.
But like, there's other things, there's insulation that's not facing the right way. It's in backwards, it should be, the paper should be facing the insulated space, and it's facing
Yeah.
the non-insulated space in this building.
So we need to figure out some basic costs. We need to figure out like the air seal, is that something we definitely need to just put on our A1
So,
or A2 it's on right now?
so there's one other thing that's not on that list, that the way wood prices and everything are gonna cost, it might be worth putting on to fix with ARPA's, the outside wall of the Sallyport
Mm.
that I showed you guys pictures of during my budget presentation. That's pretty bad. And I don't know how, as we take it apart, what you're gonna get into.
Did you fix the issue over here with the water on the front? No, not yet.
I need to build
Little,
a chicken coop thing over the door.
Yeah, that was gonna ask, can we make sure that's part of this year's plan?
That was gonna be part of, I was gonna pay for that out of the regular operating
Well,
budget.
you could put it out of ARPA if
But
that gives you that
that's
funding.
something that needs to get fixed badly.
okay.
Put
The
that on
outside wall of the
list.
Sally port is important too, because we just put a fair amount of insurance dollars into fixing the damage on the other side of it.
Mm.
That was in October.
Can we move that up on the list then and get that? So those two things we'll have on
So I
the,
was originally gonna try to do both of those out of the operating budget,
Aye.
but I don't know with the way everything is gone.
why don't you just do it out of ARPA for
That's
now?
fine.
And then you have the operating budget for later.
But do you have a number? You'll give us a number?
So, this, I don't particularly, I talked to Warren, who's the builder, and Warren doesn't wanna touch it, because if we screw up and you get water infiltration into the building, we're not insured,
Can we
like
hire someone?
somebody else is, so that would be, we'd hire somebody to
Okay.
come do that, because the amount of water that comes off of that roof
Yeah.
in that spot, if we don't flash it up, if we miss flashing it by an inch, we're gonna,
So you get an estimate for that from somebody?
yeah.
Perfect.
Same thing with over here?
Over there, I think we could do that. That's just pulling the siding off and trying to resheathe it. I just don't know what we're gonna get into for more rot,
And we
other
don't,
than what I saw there.
with the new roof over there, we're not getting that ice buildup anymore, are we?
No, but that roof also leaked earlier this year, and I had to pay someone to come fix it. Because when I went in over the new Sallyport, there was water on top of the insulation and mushrooms growing on the roof, so we had to get that fixed.
New cottage industry for us. New revenue, okay.
Where are they
Okay.
talking?
So those two items, Steve will, when he gets prices, he'll contact me with
Yeah,
prices and details.
Great,
Great.
great items.
Three
And
items.
then I'll,
The Sallyport, the,
Fire
Overhang
department.
thing.
Overhang
and
and-
how to close up the gaps.
yeah,
Yep.
the overall.
all right.
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
in general, yeah. Remember how you were getting done with the project? You were
Yeah,
feeling good
we
about
were
that?
gonna
Those are
start
good
going
feelings,
down
aren't
the road
they?
in a couple
Yeah.
weeks.
Yep.
Um,
We get a contractor for one of those things.
I'm good with the tractor.
Nice. Andy's gonna be out there, he's gonna be fixing the roads while you're fixing the building.
So, but those are things in here that I've noticed.
Yeah,
Okay.
getting that, and those are the kind of things that we can use the money from ARPA, but then that actually literally comes off of the expenses down the road. So we're saving money in the future by spending money right now. That's wise. I would just like to preview an idea that I think will be coming down the line, and that's,
so.
Sorry?
Yep. So when Steve gives you a price on that, should I put that in as ARPA one?
yes, to get done ASAP.
Well, it depends how much it is.
Yeah.
Until it's 300,000, no.
Right,
So,
it's not,
Tentatively, one of the ARPA's.
yes.
tentatively.
One, until that's run out, and then two, when we still need it.
And we got a lot of projects
So
going
ARPA
on
one
all
total
over the
was
place.
240?
239,
239.
it is
We got about
239, 163.50.
We got about 67,000 left. About.
What
I
I'm
don't-
hearing Steve say is like, if we needed to, we should take out the 50,000 from line 18 for insulating the.
Correct, and that would give us more money back.
That would get us money out of ARPA.
That could go into the other things
if we
you just
needed
said.
to.
I mean, it might be needed. There's obvious things where you can legitimately see through doors outside that,
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah, I think those should be priorities, and then this can be something.
it's like, I'll get you a picture of what above the The fire department looks like it doesn't look bad at all.
Okay.
So
Okay. I trust you.
the problem is when you do blower door tests on big open bays like that, those garage doors are not airtight. You're gonna leak bad out of all of them.
And what temperature do we heat those garages to? I mean, I heat my
Which
house to
garages?
62.
My two garages are heated to 50 is
Yeah,
what we
which
keep ours
makes
at.
sense for a garage. What are we heating the fire department garage to?
I don't know, go out there and see.
I'd just be curious, because it's an enormous space. It's only used so much, and like I said, I heat my
Well,
house to
it's
62,
radiant
63.
heat. It's radiant heat in there, so.
Right. So I'm just wondering, is it possible that we might bring that down a little bit to be a little more energy efficient?
I can talk with the chief and see what he uses.
They're gonna love me.
I
You're
thought it
cold,
was-
it's Katrina's fault.
I thought we put radiant heat in there.
There's radiant heat in that floor.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So is there other things on this list, on the buildings that we like and have questions about that we could spend some money on?
Can you give us a list of the buildings that we like versus the ones we don't like?
Yeah,
Well,
the ones we're keeping for
The
sure.
ones that are not up for debate.
Right.
The public safety complex, the transfer station.
Well, I would just like to say, one of the options when we talk about all this energy is the addition of, and we had gotten very close to this in the past, a solar unit. And that, a lot of the costs would be offset by somebody else, but we'd have to have some money to put up front. So that would take a huge number off our bill, but it would be some money coming up first. So maybe that's something we could leave a little wiggle room.
I think Lou would.
Also, I don't mean to give away all the fun, sorry, Lou. I'm just saying, before we spend the money, let's make sure we think about doing that.
We looked at that, those arrays before, and that's not gonna save us too much in terms of the money if we do that lease purchase thing, because we looked through it, and it's not, we're not saving thousands and tens of thousands of dollars.
But you now have a solar, and we can talk about this when it comes in. I think it's how we're using the energy, where we're getting the energy from, and if it may be right now in today's dollars, it's not that, it's still savings. But then as heat energy costs more and more, it becomes a much bigger savings. So I think we should just at least look into this again, because I think we sort of put it aside quickly.
Well, we did analysis last time they brought it in front of us, and we turned it down because the numbers didn't make any sense.
You still saved money. I don't know why you turned down something you're actually saving money on when it's the right thing environmentally and ecologically as well. So I think it's important to revisit.
Well, I'm not against revisiting it, but we just have to remember that revision.
It doesn't have to be a revision. You can talk to someone else.
But
When you have the plan that was proposed previously,
Mhm.
there is a desire to make the system quite large in order to entice the investor
Mhm.
to invest in it. And that means that it's not necessarily just tied to the amount of energy that's being used there at that building.
Right.
And so you end up selling a lot of electricity back, and then when you buy it, you're buying it at a higher price. I think what hasn't been looked at is just having systems that are sized for the actual need at the building.
Mhm.
Um,
So that's something to think about.
so-
it does, one of the things, if John wasn't on the Town Center Vision Committee, he would have probably done analysis, because it makes a big difference. Because energy use isn't constant.
Right.
It's ups and downs, and if you scale it appropriately, you're giving them back energy at a really cheap price.
But right now, we're just paying for energy. Like, I understand it's a bummer to pay, not get it back at the same price, but right now, we don't have energy. This is us creating our own energy. And yeah, maybe we buy it back at a different price on those times when we need it, but the rest of the time, we're not paying for energy. So I just think that's
Well,
relevant.
unless you max out in terms of how much your demand is, you're always gonna pay something.
Which
You're
is,
not- it's
which
not
is
gonna be
fine.
free.
We're paying thousands right now. I mean, our electric bill is huge.
Yeah, but then you're paying for the system that's way expensive, more than what you need. So you have to look at what your average usage is.
Okay.
And sometimes you're gonna be paying, hopefully paying, giving them back energy, not so much, because you're not gonna get very much for it. But then you have to balance that with, on your high points, you're gonna pay whatever the particular rate is. So if you buy an array that maxes you out at whatever your height is in terms of your maxes,
Mhm.
you get an array that does that, then you're, on the dips, you're giving them energy at a wicked cheap price, and you're paying for that particular expense.
You're paying for
worth it.
what? You're paying for what?
You're paying for the array, you have to pay for the array.
I know, but all the times you're not paying for energy
Yeah, but
helps you. And then you do pay it back at a lower rate, sure, but you're paying it back
I
as
think you
opposed to
need
having
to look at the
nothing.
numbers in terms
Okay.
of what it went through, because it's not like you're putting in the array and then you pay nothing for electricity. It
I
doesn't
never
work
said that.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
I think that what hasn't been done is a really good study of matching what the demand is
Mhm.
with what the generation would be,
Mhm.
at time of day, not just over the course of a year,
Mhm.
and taking into account what additional energy using features you're gonna be putting into the building. Like over at the library, there's a lot of talk about, well, they have listed
Mhm.
a number of mini splits
Yep.
for heating and cooling. And so those kinds of additional uses ought to be matched to, you ought to be looking ahead at, so it isn't just, I think you end up with a bad answer when you look at a system in isolation.
I
without
agree.
considering, and I'll tell you honestly, I did not find any solar energy company around here that carefully looks at the demand of the individual building,
Mhm.
hour by hour, and compares that with the generation.
Everyone that I've spoken to that has switched to solar has been amazed at, over the course of 10 years or whatever, how it pays back for itself, and now you're using an alternative energy. So I just think we should be open to these ideas.
Yes.
So,
But I think you need to do the proper analysis.
Of course.
To get the most out of it.
absolutely.
Um,
But if you have money to go forward with that idea, and then you can pay that money back, then you're decreasing future taxes by spending a little bit now. I guess that's what I'm saying. So we'll look into the details when we get everyone to visit. I just wanna,
Can I ask a question, number 3? The furnace, the boiler for the town hall annex. Is that already, that's already been paid for, it's already in progress? How are we funding that? Are we not doing that?
Nothing. We're not doing
Nothing.
anything with that. That'd be
That's-
the Historical Society's storage building, Karen's old office.
It's also right now the town's water system.
Huh?
It's the town's water system also, because that's where the water tank is.
Yeah,
Okay, so is that something that should be done this fiscal year?
I don't think it's in that bad a shape, from what I've been told.
Yeah, they just keep it, what is it,
It's
15
a
degrees?
yeah,
They don't-
the
they
two
don't
that
keep-
we did, the reason we did the town hall one is because they don't make parts for it anymore. And it broke last year, and Pete and I somehow got it running and fixed, but they don't make parts for it anymore, so if it breaks now, you're not fixing it.
You're replacing it for the
Yes.
14,880?
Yes, and then the highway department annex one, you could see the fire in the furnace through the firebox, and
That's not good.
it was bad.
So should we
So the
update,
question
John,
is, yeah.
that estimated cost, I believe, should be 14,880, because I think he said it's gonna be the same
I
as
think, yeah, you're probably
the
right.
annex,
and then should
and
that be
then
an
changed
A2?
into
That
2022.
would be
But we're saying we don't need to do that in 2022?
That's not,
Yeah.
that furnace isn't in bad shape.
Okay,
The initial meeting, they had deemed it as later, without a
Okay.
specified date.
So do we have a date that we want to put in? Because otherwise, it's in here for this
Other
year.
than later.
Yeah, let's put it later. Will it take later?
No, no.
How many years are you thinking, Steve? 2? 3?
What's he gonna say?
See?
No, no.
Yeah, 2 or
See,
3,
it doesn't take later.
That's funny.
This
You're
2025.
yeah.
Great. 2025?
Yeah.
Okay.
other things for 2020, or 22, line 24, cemetery shed expand or replace is currently not funded. Is that something that's going to happen this year for 23?
So I'm not the cemetery trustees, but the reason that we need a bigger shed is there's a lot of, it's not big enough, so it's full of plywood, because when we have to dig a grave, we have to lay plywood out across the top of previously buried people, so we don't crush the vaults and destroy the stone. So there's some places where we'll bury some, we'll have to put out 30 sheets of plywood to get a dump truck
Wow.
and a machine into. So that is full, that little shed that's there is full of 4x8 sheets of plywood. And there's no room in it. It's full of the plywood, the tools, the probes, all the flags that they put out every year with the little metal placards are all in there. It's just not big enough
Okay,
for,
so is this something that we should do this year and think about where to fund it for?
Could we use that shed somewhere else if we replace it?
Mhm. Yeah, the shed's not in bad shape, it's just not big enough.
Right now, it's listed as coming out of the reserve fund.
Is it?
The reserve, yeah, so it's not our, but yeah.
Cemetery shed.
And I think that price was just like a home, or a Lowe's or a Home Depot kit shed that we found that would work.
Are those gonna be
So
big enough though?
so
Yeah,
blank
You
is,
can get them big enough.
Big enough?
Blank means that it's coming from the reserve
Does that sit
fund.
on blocks?
okay, I
What does it
think
say?
that's why I
Sits on
misunderstood,
blocks.
okay, I understand, I'm sorry, John, thank you.
That's okay. X means it's not. no
X
funding.
means we're not currently funding it.
So-
Okay.
If it's filled up with plywood, what are we not able to store in it? Why do we need more space?
So, in order to get the plywood out, you have to empty the entire shed out to get it out, and then,
Okay.
yeah, it's
Part of
not,
it
So it's a
was
logistic-
the door was in a bad place,
the door's in a horrible place.
I have a question.
so can you put a new
Oh.
door?
Maybe, but I wasn't, this was the cemetery
You can look into
trustees, I just try to,
And if we had that door, that shed became free because we did replace it with a new shed, would that shed that we currently have be one we could use for a snow blower and some of the things we need? Okay,
Is that a shed for the snow blower on this list?
no,
Okay, so we take care of two problems,
yeah,
one of which is even on the list. What about line 39? Town hall replace the outside stairway, is that something we're planning on doing this year?
Probably wouldn't wanna do that until you know what you're doing.
Right.
I'm just asking, I mean,
Yeah,
we
good
have
question.
listed as 22, so.
that's because it's not exactly, safe to walk up and down, which is why we've got it blocked off.
Okay,
I think we just put it on there as 22 because it was something that,
But it's currently not funded.
yeah. When they started doing this, I had inherited all the town buildings and they said, find what's wrong, so I just gave them a list and they went from, you guys went from like 10 or 15 things to 40.
right.
which is awesome because they all needed to get done, so. We're just trying to figure out which ones need to be filled.
Let's, yeah, that's what I'm trying to work.
Right. What is the sprinkler piping? What is TRS?
That's for the transfer station?
Yeah.
Is that something we could do soon? Oh, it's already on there, got it, sorry.
Yeah, I know, I'm trying to find
I
the.
know.
That was the pressure loss you were having.
Oh, yeah, the thing's full of holes.
Yeah.
So that, and do you want to do that sooner?
Doesn't matter.
Is this item a duplicate? Library air conditioning
I
replacement?
don't know.
I don't believe so,
I
John.
mean, it's listed as an X, it's not funded.
Yeah, we had it as later on the.
It says
blackboard chart.
police AC, why is?
We were thinking we were gonna move it or something from the police when we
Was
put the
it the
big one in.
same system? as
Oh,
the
maybe to
police
find the price.
Oh, it's because I gave it, I just put it down as about the same price as what the lead
Oh,
police
okay.
department was, so they just put that load in.
So is this, so do they need their AC replaced?
Woohoo,
The library?
Library,
oh yeah.
yes.
And they're,
The-
do we know if they're planning on
The
doing?
air
it?
conditioner that is outside now was donated to them years ago and is not in good shape.
Definitely. What about a heat pump?
Huh?
Well, we're putting in all these things as a heat pump, an option for the heat and the AC as they're renovating.
In all their previous designs, and I haven't seen 6 and 7, they've had multiple
Mini splits. I know, so I'm wondering, is there a way to get the air throughout? Do they have anything or no? They'd be more affordable than all the mini splits and all those pieces.
So like currently the back half of the building is off one furnace. And then the front half of the building's off another furnace, because there's 2 furnaces in that building.
Okay.
The back half of the building, when it had the addition, was gonna have 2 mini splits added, and I think in the most recent, it's not having any.
So are replacing furnaces on here? Is a heat pump an option down the road?
The 2 furnaces are almost brand new.
Okay, so it's not right now.
They're the same exact furnace too, but they're, I think, 4 or 5 years old. They're not,
Okay.
let's say they weren't in bad shape, we had to fix one.
And I was looking at mini splits, because I know we didn't go with a mini split because they don't work under certain temperatures, but I think that that has become better technology. Is that true? Because I know we didn't get it because it said it, anything under freezing, you could no longer heat. So like you can use it for 10 months a year. And I'm like, that's not good.
You have to be careful because a lot of property and casualty insurers in this zone don't recognize heat pumps and mini splits
Because they
as
stopped
official heat.
working,
I've had
yeah.
people that have refinanced and put them into buildings and
Yeah.
then found out that their insurance companies.
And is that recent?
Yeah, last year.
So that just worries me as a heat option, if we're not being careful.
If you're doing enough of them, then it could make sense to do a couple rather than your couple.
Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Where you guys are, Rebecca's or Mrs. Hawthorne's trying to go through and find things.
Yeah.
Is it worth, where the building is 20 years old now, trying to stagger replacing windows in it?
Oh,
This building?
Where,
That's how long windows last?
yeah.
where we've had, we're obviously starting to get air penetration through it, is it worth, instead of trying to do every window in the building at once, which isn't gonna be cheap, doing,
No.
let's just say you wanna do that set this year.
For me, it comes down to, why are we getting air?
I
Is it
know.
coming through the window, or is it because they didn't seal around the window?
Yeah,
That's a big thing. If they're installed properly, you shouldn't get that.
no.
But,
And then
you
what are
know,
we gonna be using the building for in 5 years, 10 years? Is, what's the best way to replace those windows?
At some point, you're gonna have to replace the windows.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point. Because that's not on here, right?
Because ultimately, you guys remember, because they're doing the bunk rooms over there, what are they gonna use this room for, the fire department?
This was originally supposed to be the bunk rooms.
Right, so it's not.
So now the bunk rooms are over there, so
Probably
they move them over here?
Probably the gym, because I think there's a steel beam in the floor here.
Mhm.
They were thinking of putting the gym in the old, where they used to.
They keep changing their mind, I
Okay.
don't
Most,
know.
most recently, I believe the fire chief talked about this being as a training area,
Meeting space.
meeting space
Is
for
that,
training.
as the fire department grows, is that the vision, is that they will grow and they will need to expand, or?
Yeah.
This was always supposed to be
I
there.
know, I'm just curious why.
Yeah. Why do we make it so big is really the question.
I don't know.
Like, why does the fire
building's
department
open?
need this whole floor? Why can't we just keep using it?
Well,
If you go
originally
back
it was.
and look, when, in the annual report, when the building was open, they talked about the building being sized for the safety needs for 50 years.
Yeah.
And I have been asking for quite a while, now that we're about almost 40% of the way into that term.
Mhm.
It seems to me that there should be another crystal ball gazing of what do you think the space needs are for safety services for
Right.
the next 15 or 20 years in this building?
Right,
And what does that mean for what are you going to turn these spaces into?
right.
And I think that that could be much more efficient than trying to meet each need as it comes up with moving things around in
Yep.
small
Have
changes.
a long-term
To
plan.
have a long-term plan.
Yep, I agree.
It doesn't mean that it's gonna work out exactly that way on that time schedule,
Mhm.
but
But it also comes back to, where are you gonna move your meeting space if it's not here? And right at the moment, we don't have the space yet, so.
Which is fine, but then that's what we were talking about, for the
Right, that-
possibility for the town hall.
that's what then helps give you that time schedule. of
Right.
When is that gonna be needed?
Right.
And I know that the police chief would be interested in doing that.
Doing what? Doing the
We're
plan?
working on that plan of what do the needs look like
Got it.
15 or 20 years down the road. I have talked to him about that.
Yeah, makes sense. And a lot of that has to do with population, which we don't know a lot about, because the charrette told us we'd be at 5,200 people by now, and we are still pretty close to where we were when we did the charrette.
But any plan you make can't be perfect, but
No.
it's better than having no plan.
Right, I'm just saying, if you're building based on population, that's a challenging.
Well, that's why
School district do
the
a
plan from
population
almost 20 years ago.
projection
Right, needs to be looked
Yeah,
at.
long
Quite
planning
when they
committee,
did the middle school?
down in terms of the numbers.
Which is why when you build, if you build for your space, then have a place you can build easily for addition, then if it turns out you don't need it, you don't have empty space, which
I
is,
do understand my middle school went right away.
Yeah.
No one else paid that.
oh.
Don't get us started on that. So,
What do you, no, I didn't handle that, what you
There was
said.
a second choice for the middle school building wherein one could actually build
Yes.
something onto it if more
Yes.
space was necessary.
Which would make so much more sense.
Which did not happen.
the two LEAP representatives on that committee voted for some other place. And we were not listened to because the people in Durham had more votes than we did, and they all wanted it to stay right where it was.
Got it.
Did not
You
want it to-
can't build onto the side of it, like you're saying.
Right.
Yeah, to me, if you aren't thinking about where you can expand, every single building we struggle with, like, we can't, and it costs all this extra money, but if you planned in your plan an easy addition, you've just saved the future town so much money. And it doesn't cost more to do that. So, a very odd choice.
So I have a question about what is up there. Do I
Yeah.
need to wait for the board to vote, or can I call Jones and Beach and tell them to start doing James Farm, and you put them both on the same?
Can we
thing?
vote and have them
Do
get
I-
that done?
I mean, I can wait a week. It's not
No,
a big
let's
deal.
do it.
I'm just asking the question.
I think we can vote.
Well, you already, did- well.
I've only
where's
done
the vote?
Decato, because I only told him to do
Oh,
Decato,
you
because I
put them all-
thought,
Oh, I know what you did. Okay, never mind.
Just so you could put.
he just added them together, but
I'm
Yeah.
happy to vote.
You are scheduled as a work
Are you
session.
happy to
Or
vote?
posted
Oh,
as-
so
I
we're not
can
allowed
wait, I can wait a week. I
That's
just was
great.
asking the question. That's all I was asking.
So on next Monday's
Next
agenda, we
Monday.
need to put a
Alright.
motion to vote to go forward with those guys.
No, that's all I was asking.
What is it? That's not what this says. It's not set, it's scheduled as a meeting, not a work session.
Uh-oh. I'm fine, I mean, if-
We posted it as a work session on the web, but.
can he go ahead and
you're
call
right,
Jones and
I'm
Beach,
actually-
and then he can just tell us the number when he gets
Yeah, that is the number.
Oh,
That number right there is the number.
so we're just saying, do we have to wait a week to say?
I can
pull the
wait a week,
trigger?
it's not a big deal.
Well, but
I just was asking
how
the
long
question.
are-
It's just next Monday.
I can put it in the consent agenda,
perfect.
and talk about it if you'd like, or just sign it.
I'm happy to do whatever.
Um,
October 7th.
Yeah, that's, like, it's still
That's
gonna be the
pretty
same
good,
price
yeah.
after all, okay. Jones and Beach, thank you. All right,
The.
So is this to fix, what is this one to fix?
That's to find the right of way of which way.
Oh, okay, that.
That's to find the right of way at James Farm, so we know where we are.
That's not to deal with the other.
No.
James Farm.
and that's not actually repairing anything, that's just survey?
Yeah, because everything out there is gone, so they have to try to,
Oh, yeah.
like, there's nothing there that's.
Pins and stuff are gone.
What's it gonna
Yeah,
cost
so
once we do that?
what they're gonna do with that is survey it, find the right of way, and they're gonna put bounds, concrete bounds in the ground at the corner of every property
Okay.
line, around the whole thing, so we can finally know whether, like, all the new
And that's
developments
included in that
are.
price?
Yeah.
Okay, so that'll never be as expensive again going forward?
No, we'll never have to do it again. The only reason we're doing that one is that's the first development that was ever built in town.
They
And,
didn't do it then?
well, they put iron stakes in the ground. The problem is that was 40-something years ago, and I don't know where any of them are.
Okay,
I can't find them.
great.
Does this do anything with our water drainage easements or not? No, not really.
No, because
Because it says drainage, so that's what I'm asking.
it shouldn't say drainage. This one, that is just, Decato is for drainage, because that one, we
Oh, okay.
had to find
Yeah,
where the right-of-way was in order to get a drainage easement
okay.
to run water. This one, we're just trying to find where the right-of-way is, so I know if the ditch lines along the side of the road are even
In the right
on-
place.
In the right-of-way.
Okay, fair enough.
So my recollection is that this one could not come out of this reserve fund, the Decato Drive,
Oh, okay.
because it had nothing to do with making any changes to the road.
But I think we're gonna approve a money for ARPA.
Yeah, I think so.
Move it to
So
We're gonna be
A1.
able to ARPA both of those.
Okay.
But we
Because
just
you
can't
are-
do that yet because of the thing.
Okay.
I think what was said, John, is you're correct, and then they were gonna try to take it out of ARPA, and if that couldn't work, we were gonna just find another way to pay for it.
The ARPA works,
But it
that's
is
great.
ARPA.
Yeah, perfect.
So
Is
when
what
I
I
fix
think
that
it is.
worksheet, it'll be listed as ARPA.
Thank you.
So while I'm doing that, I think I will put in, every one of them will you'll be able to put ARPA on anything.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks.
Is there
Appreciate that.
anything else that we could theoretically use ARPA funds for on any other tab that we don't know where the money's coming from?
Well, you got trust funds tied to most of these.
I know, I know.
You could go into the highway, like the salt shed or something like that, and get a big chunk real fast.
Are we ever going to do this salt shed?
Well, I'm just saying,
We
that's, it's on
kinda- We
there.
kind of have to, because if the salt shed starts leaking, we start running into DES issues.
Oh.
So it's a large expense down the road that we, I mean, I'm just saying, if
So
you're
if we
looking for
had
something.
leftover ARPA money and we had nowhere to spend it, we
Right.
could start work on the salt shed, is what you're suggesting.
And you got the issue of number 2 and also number 7. Those are big chunks.
Okay. That right now we're all coming out of the trust fund?
No funding is,
No,
I
no,
think,
no.
where is it?
2.
No
There's
funding.
no funding.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But you could also do a lot of the renovation on the old town hall, if you wanted, with ARPA. If you just couldn't get very, you'd have
It's
to do it.
400 and somewhat, you know,
Town hall.
yeah, you'd have to do the whole thing or nothing, because
You don't have to do the whole thing or nothing. You could do a bunch of things you need to do and,
We could, there's a pre-construction rehab cost of $62,000.
right.
Or
I don't remember
65.
what's in that. What's in that?
This one?
Yeah, WME.
Um,
Because the other thing that's in, oh, what is that? What?
Oh,
What is that?
It's recent furnace replacement.
That's-
No, that was just show the prices.
That's not right.
that's not what's supposed to come up.
Furnace history cost. Ooh, bad linkage.
Bad link.
You'll have to fix that
Oh,
one, so.
Ah,
Bad
bad
link.
link.
I'm just saying it's gonna be a lot easy, it would be a lot easier to come up with a smaller number later for the finishing of, if you did some of the things, but anyway.
This pre-construction rehab cost, much of that was design cost, engineering and design.
Oh, okay, which is not really
Because
ARPA.
the other thing was
In order
next
to be
to,
able to do the then
where's
construction.
the, oh, they're further down, 29? Where's the common septic system and that kind of stuff?
31?
That comes in these phases, so.
So that's something you could do where you get the library septic up and running, have it all figured out, and then, but you'd have to know, is it gonna be part of the new town building, so.
That's, do you know about that, Rebecca?
Yes.
Do you know about the septic issue?
She watched all of it.
Because at some point, we gotta deal with septic, because we got those holding tank, there's no septic field anyplace there,
Right.
so.
So that we would just have to decide if we are going for a road bond for the town hall building, then is there, and what do we do about that? And so that's a good thing. But that would be a reasonable use for ARPA, it is actually, water, is it?
Yep.
That would be a great reasonable use.
Sewage and water projects are,
And is there any extra funding for, I thought there was for sewage.
there's a series of funding things, some of it grants, some of it low interest loan
Okay.
through state programs.
So it might be worth it to look into any grants we might be available to get.
Comes back to the thing in terms of the expense for that. We should
Right.
look and see if we can hire somebody
Right.
because you send a list of all those particular grant programs. I think we should seriously look and see if we can find somebody that we can engage.
So Stratford Regional Planning Committee will do grant writing for us as part of the services they provide to us, and they are much more aware of all the options. So all we'd have to do is ask them right now, and they could do that for us.
If only our rep could, take that duty on.
So if we wanted to do that,
Meeting on Friday.
there is a meeting on Friday, I'm happy to bring it. It's me, I know.
You're looking
It
at
just
me
makes you
like,
feel
oh,
bad
no,
for
but
no
I'm
reason.
their rep for.
I would be happy to bring that to them, talk about grant writing and some options, and then we could use that, whatever amount we pay, we will get back. So I think that's a great idea.
Because we should start that as soon as possible, because I don't know what grants are out there for, septic systems or whatever else is out there.
And they know better than we do.
With the septic system, if you're gonna do that, you also need to move the well.
Yeah,
Because right now you can't
it's a
put.
two-pronged process.
Which we would have just enough money for, but we wouldn't be able to do other things that we want to do. However, it sounds like we're gonna be able to cover with this year's ARPA what we need to do to get things better, so.
And the thing is, you would need to, no matter what you're doing, you need to coordinate all those particular projects.
So can we move the things we know for sure that we're gonna do from A2 to A1, so Steve can go ahead and work on those? with the ones we've already approved?
Oh, I got them, I know which ones.
Okay, and that way we know what's left is A2 as we're deciding. Does that make sense?
So like line number 15 is currently A2. Is that something we're definitely doing?
Yeah, I've already,
Yeah.
Okay.
He's already,
So do
yeah.
you want
Let's
to
make
turn
that
that to
one.
I've
A1?
already signed the thing to do it that way.
Perfect. And
We
then,
weren't sure about 17 and 18, those were up for debate.
192.
well, 18 is up for debate, but are we definitely gonna do 17? No?
Huh?
Aren't we gonna do 17, the air seal? No? I thought that was part of before we insulated.
I don't even know what that is.
Let's find out.
Because it says insulate air seal, so I don't know what.
Oh, this is,
It says they want 12 inches of blown-in cellulose, there's already 12 inches of blown-in cellulose.
Oh, so that's part of the same thing with the ceiling that we didn't, I thought that was below it.
What's this air sealing hours
It's
through
to
sail
bring it up from
penetrations?
R38 to R50.
well,
Okay.
And
that
then
second part,
air
block off
sealing.
soffits and add vents.
And then we would get that rebate is what everyone's saying,
After you pay the
Yeah,
$1,500.
right?
the rebate, in order to do that, you have to have some modeling done, which is gonna cost $1,500.
Right.
And if the modeling then shows savings that are
Reasonable.
accepted by the utility, you get the rebate.
But is that on the whole project, or, like, if we ignored the cellulose and we just looked at the second and third thing, the 18 and $2,400, the AL ceiling and the block off soffit, that was what you were talking about?
So, no, because if you don't do the cellulose,
Yeah.
you're probably not gonna achieve what the power company wants you to get. And there's still no guarantee if they do the cellulose and what they say,
Yeah.
you're gonna get the $5,900 after you spend the 15 grand, because if you don't meet the numbers that New Hampshire Electric Co-op wants you to meet, you don't get it.
What I was saying is, if we don't really need the cellulose, do we need the second and third thing, this air sealing or
Right,
the
do we even need to
soffit?
do any of it, is what you're saying?
But that's why I put in here, the number that I've entered is the maximum,
Right.
which is if you pay for everything and you pay for the $1,500 and you then still don't get the
Right.
rebate.
But we're not sure we need it, so what we're saying is it would cost $1,500 to figure out if we need it. There's no other way to find out more cheaply.
That's even my question. So you're saying we don't really need more insulation probably?
I just know there's already a
Do we need the air sealing and
foot
do we need
there.
the block off thing? Do we need?
I don't know, if you block the soffits off, you don't get airflow and then mold happens,
Yeah.
is my personal opinion. So I don't know why you'd wanna block off
Well, it's
the
block off
airflow.
and add?
Right, where needed.
Is that not a real thing?
I don't, there's already vents in the ceiling, that's what like the big circle thing is over the peak of the roof right there when you, it's
So-
like 2 feet wide, that's a big
I'm gonna
vent.
look at that.
This is the
This
energy
is, this comes from
commission.
the energy
Okay,
committee.
so maybe we should talk to them more about
We
what,
need to talk to
Yeah.
them.
They are on an upcoming
Right.
agenda, I think, to talk specifically about this with you.
okay, so let's, yeah, so we'll look at that later then.
Okay, so then let's leave that as A2 then, since it's
Yeah.
not something we're not 100% sure about.
At
What
least we know
else is
where
on
we're going.
A2?
The ceiling insulation.
Which we're also not sure about.
Right.
And that's necessary.
So
And then
talk
you've
to
got
them.
34 and 35 are currently
This
A2.
one, so that was to actually insulate, put the insulation on the roof slopes.
Correct. With a possible
And
rebate.
again, I put it in as if you paid for everything, including the assessment, and you didn't get the $16,000.
Thank you, I
Which is
appreciate
the
that.
worst case.
So it's possible that could be.
That one I would agree with, because if the furnace is off
Okay,
for the hallway in Bill's office, and you go into his office when
Yeah.
it's 5 degrees out,
okay.
it's 20 degrees out in his office.
So why
you
is that
wouldn't-
one and not the other one?
Because
There
there's
you
no,
have
there's no insulation like that. This is where all the pink insulation is.
So
is
then that
over
should
on
be
his
A1, because that sounds like something we're definitely gonna do soon.
I think that one, for some reason, it's cold over there.
We just should.
But it's different insulation. Over there's cellulose, here's the pink bat insulation.
So let's make that A1 for now, maybe? And then we'll talk to, and you can look into that?
I mean, so I've never been in this,
Okay, you're overspent.
I've never
Well, it's
been
only
in,
by $3,000.
I've never been in the ceiling up in there. It might just be you need to put bat insulation in
It could be.
and fix it and not do that. I
Okay.
don't know.
All right, let's look into it.
Doesn't he have a window in his office?
Yeah,
Could be,
The window problem.
if they didn't install these properly and you're getting drafts, most likely it's the same thing
Plastic's
over there,
really cheap,
so.
guys. Steel window.
So that's
It's a
also
window.
maybe then, or,
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. Another thing would be great, because don't they have, the fire department has those thermal cameras. It'd be interesting to see
it will be.
if, or if
Yeah, let's do some actual research. It's cold
Yeah.
tomorrow. Let's do some research or sometime soon. Like in.
It'd actually be
do
good
the shoot.
training for them to use them.
Yeah, let's
so
do it.
If I
it's
ask
cold out
Chief.
tomorrow,
Very cold in the morning.
have them shine up in there and see if they're blooming heat, then we know something's wrong, so.
I can ask him to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do
Good
it.
training.
It's because we only have so many really, really cold days left.
I
Let's do
think
it.
tomorrow's probably about it, I'm hoping tomorrow's about it.
So it sounds like where we're at right now is a lot of these numbers, we're gonna have to get information back from. We're gonna be talking to Energy Committee, we're gonna be possibly spending money there, and then Steve's gonna look. So are we at a place now, since we're not willing to talk about which buildings stay, which go yet, that we can?
Who said that? You
Well-
talked about it, you can talk about it some more.
We didn't decide anything. All right, so,
You can't decide.
do you wanna
which
keep
one.
talking about this, or do you wanna
I don't know,
call it a day?
it's 8 o'clock, almost. 8 o'clock.
Right.
You wanted to do something in
Oh,
non-public,
not
so.
public, yeah, so should we,
wanna go home?
I mean,
I was
everyone
home-
looks a little tired,
I was
so.
home 30 minutes ago in my head.
I'm just saying, we all look real tired, so maybe we should be aware that we're not going anywhere, right? I know, we should get
This
everyone
hasn't been
home.
here since 6 o'clock.
Right, so I think we're at a place where we have things to do, we have a plan, and we can work on it later.
Thank you, John.
Steve that long.
I didn't either, I had no idea it was so late either, but I looked around and everyone's
Who knows,
eyes
you're
and they're
having
falling
fun.
asleep.
Speak for yourself,
Are
Rebecca.
you
I
gonna
was
call
having
Scott, or
fun.
do you want me to call Scott?
Well, we did spend like 20 minutes trying to get the keyboard.
That's
and
true,
the
that's, we were doing
Projector
IT.
and,
IT support. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah.
we do.
Next time, you don't let John touch the equipment until somebody else starts it up and make sure it works, then we can get it going.
Actually, one of the things that I had talked to Steve Gagnon about, if you're agreeable to this, John, is if I can get you and Steve
Yes,
at
yes.
a common
I was
time, so
thinking of
you can both
suggesting
meet,
that.
and he can certainly do that easily, and said he'd be happy to
Sure.
Okay.
go back there.
Oh,
To
great,
John, just so they can
perfect.
ascertain what exactly is not functioning here every time.
Have we considered, if you're gonna do that, also having someone from the new tech committee
Yeah.
be present at that?
Have we gotten that up and running?
Do not have it up and running, we have the
Close.
agreement.
Perfect.
We've got at least 2 people that want to be on it.
Yay.
Multiple people have called me and want nothing to do with tech except creating new emails.
A subcommittee?
Creating email capacity and storage capacity for,
Great. It's obviously a priority.
not subcommittees, but things like the
they're not-
sustainability committee, the energy committee.
And that's
that type of
reasonable,
thing.
that's something that we'll work on.
Someplace for them to all share work,
Yes.
Right,
Is there a
so.
reason we're not like Google Drive based?
that's,
What part of the
I've heard a lot about that.
Okay,
And
just
I know
curious.
there's definite interest in.
That's where I work, everything's Google based.
It just makes sense if somebody leaves or moves or whatever, just why are we,
Well-
everyone's, it's all around in people's private.
I think that's, no, I think the thing is, Paul's got a whole bunch of stuff at his house that's really town stuff, but
Right.
what is he gonna do with it? What's he gonna do?
Right, so we'll work on that. All right, so we should go into non-public, you have the RSA, do you want to read it?
Remember, I wasn't gonna go, I was gonna go home.
I know, that's funny.
Oh,
I
I
can-
wasn't.
I can read it.
All right, you read it.
Like,
Silent Steve.
Katrina wants to make a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91A32C, matters which if discussed in public
Thank
likely
you.
affect adversely the
Have a
reputation
good
of
night.
the person other than a member of this board.
Great,
Is
Seconded?
that what you want?
that is, yes.
Is that what you
That's the
said?
motion I just said, correct. I said it really well, and very
Have a
fast.
second?
Second?
Thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
Roll call vote, Katrina Pascal.
Yes.
Rebecca Hawthorne.
Yep.
Scott Bugby, Rebecca, yes. Motion passes.
Whichever one of you wants to, if you want
Motion to
to.
seal the meeting, the non-public meeting minutes. No?
It's illegal. How can you do something that's illegal?
But he said it was posted as a meeting on.
Not on the thing there, that's what, either was it a work session or wasn't. I suggest we wait till Monday when it's legal and just do it then.
Great.
Okay, so do we need to motion to end this or no? Because we can't, we're getting.
Just close.
We can just.
We
be
can
done.
just adjourn.
Just adjourn.
All right.